Welcome back to Let's Make a Game, the channel where we are making a computer role-playing game using the free program Twine and the Sugarcube format for Twine. I have made a character, I have started playing, I've come to a settlement, I tried to sneak through, which is one of the options, and I made it because I chose an elf character, and elf characters tend to be good at sneaking in this game. As you can see, it says I managed to sneak through, or you managed to sneak through the settlement unnoticed. And that means I can now choose my exit from the area. And you'll notice that the map picture looks slightly different to how it did before. It's still got the lines indicating that there are exits, in this case to the north, south and west. But there's this new symbol in the middle of the screen, and that symbol indicates that in this particular area there is a settlement. This red symbol is meant to indicate a tent. So what I want to do in this video is show you how I did that. Firstly, showing you how I made the symbol in GIMP, and then secondly, what code I needed to change in Twine to make it display properly. Now, what I could have done, I have 15 images already that have all of the possible combinations of tunnels. So I have this one, which indicates tunnels to the north, south and west, but not to the east. And then I have another one, which is for tunnels to the west and east, but not the north and south, and so on and so on. And there's 15 of those. What I could have done was made 15 more. I could have made one that goes to the north, the south and the west, and then has this symbol in the middle. And then it would be fairly easy to change the code so that it brings up a picture with or without the settlement picture, depending on whether there's a settlement there. But I did something that's slightly more efficient. I actually only made this settlement symbol. I only made one file with this. And what you're looking at here is actually two images. There's the image indicating that there's a settlement, which is mostly a transparent image, and then it's got this little square in the middle. And there's the image underneath it, which is the one indicating what tunnels there are or what exits there are. So I'll show you how I coded that second, but first let me show you, get rid of that. First let me show you what I mean and how I made it. So I have, getting into the map, I've got my 15 pictures of the different possible exits, and I've got this single picture which is the same size but mostly transparent and has that symbol in the middle, and that symbol is overlaid on the relevant tunnel picture, which means that I have less artwork, and therefore it takes up less memory, which is not particularly important at this size, but I want it to be as efficient as possible. So let me show you roughly how I made that symbol. The symbol is the image, the entire image is 300 by 300 pixels, but I started with a much larger image and then shrunk it because I find that gets better looking results. So I have this big picture. I actually made it 1024 by 1024, which is the same size as the master for the map. There was no real reason to do that, but that's what I did. I made sure that the image has an alpha channel, which is to say that parts of it can be remembered as transparent. Then we need to cut all of this white out. We could do that with an eraser, or we could Control or Command A, and then Control or Command X, and that is select all and then cut. So having got rid of that, we need to now draw the square. And I did that with the same brushstroke picture that I had been using to make the tunnel pictures, because I wanted it to look consistent. So I loaded this. I can't remember if these are the exact sizes that I used, but I loaded it 4 times using slightly different sizes to make it look a bit more natural. And having got four different layers, we need to, I might just move that over so I can see this. Sorry, I'll adjust this to the size of the screen so that I don't. There we go. Okay. So I use the move tool, which is this one, to get everything separated. Makes it a bit easier to work with. And then we need to rotate. Now I could rotate 90 degrees, but I chose to use arbitrary rotation, again, so that it's a bit rougher and a bit more natural looking. When you rotate it, you need to choose to go to new layer, and it creates this empty layer with nothing in it. So you need to, well, you don't need to, but I find it is better to delete. To delete it so you don't get layers that you're not doing anything with. Actually, I don't know why that one. Anyway. All right, so we'll turn this one around. Okay. So now we've got four lines going in sort of an up, a down, a left and a right one. I just moved them to be roughly a square shape. Something like that, usually with the sort of head of the brush stroke being at the bit that's going to be the square. Then I merged everything down, which turns it into a single layer, so that if we change the colour, it'll change the colour of everything. Obviously we want it to be black, so we go to brightness contrast, and we put the brightness right down and the contrast right up, and that will make it black. Then we need to get rid of these sort of tail bits. So I get into the eraser. I get into tool options and make sure that maybe that's a little bit bigger. That seems about right. And I make sure that hard edge is off, because in this case I want a sort of soft, more natural looking result. Excuse me. Okay, so we have our square. Like that. Now we need to get the parchment texture. Oh, that's a. So the way we do that is we use the same one as the same parchment picture as before. It's called background. Choose to convert it and put it below the brush. Now we get into this one, which we haven't used before. This is the free select tool, and I'll zoom in a little bit to make it easier. What we want to do is choose the bit that's inside the square. So we click, let's say, here, and we just move the mouse going around the square, selecting an area such that what's inside the square is selected and what's outside the square isn't selected. And then when we get back to the beginning, we can put the mouse on there, and when it lights up we can do that, and it's selected that bit. So we invert the selection, which means instead of selecting what's in here, we're now selecting what's out here, and then we go Command X. First we give this an alpha channel so that it can go transparent. Then we go Control X. and then we go Control Alt to get rid of the selection. And thus, we can see if we merge that down, we have a square with blank parchment inside it. If we move it, it will reveal a bit more of that, so we'll need to erase it. But so the only thing we need to do now is the tent symbol, which is just the brush. Excuse me. It's just the brush strokes at a different angle and in a different colour. So let me show you. I'll only do it with one line because the principle is pretty straightforward. Let's say we load that 1300. We'll give it an arbitrary rotation. So to get it at the angle that we want, something like that. That time it's gone to a new layer. I don't know what the difference is. I'm not really a great expert in GIMP, but I noticed that a couple of times it's gone to a new layer and I've had to choose to turn it into a new layer, and there's been a sort of blank layer left over. And sometimes it hasn't done that, and I honestly don't know what the difference is. I'm sorry. But anyway, so we get this in the place where we want it to go. We we get the eraser, and we have to keep doing this to be careful of that, otherwise you'll have this sort of edge bit that you don't want. But anyway, we get onto this and make sure that hard edge is not selected, which it isn't, but it's good to be sure. Where is it? Hard edge, there. Make sure that hard edge is not selected, and we erase it to the size that we want. And of course in real life I just do that with another, when I was actually making this I just did that with putting it at another angle. But the only thing I need to show you in GIMP now is how to change the colour. And this is where we do this. We go colours, colour balance, and we put the red right up, and we put the other two right down, and that will, excuse me, that will make it red. And then we do something similar to that with it. We'd make another red line, but going in another direction, and then we would export it. In my case, I exported it to map, and I called it settlement. So that's the GIMP side of things. That's how I made the actual file. Sorry, we'd have to scale it, of course. Scale it to 300, and then we would export that as a picture. And I also saved, because I might want to have other symbols than settlements. In fact, I definitely will want to have at least a couple more. I saved this as a template. I called it feature template. And that way I can just get into this. I don't have to do this bit anymore. I can just get into this and draw a different symbol using that brush picture. And in this case, the parchment pattern will always be the same, whereas I made sure not to have that happen in the original map pictures. But the way the game works, you won't go from one area with a symbol to another area with a symbol. You can go from an area without a symbol to an area without a symbol when you're wandering around the map, but you won't go to one with a symbol to another one with a symbol, because when you get to a settlement, before you get the picture of the map, you actually just get text telling you that you've come to the settlement, you need to interact with it. So in other words, there shouldn't be any jumps from one picture with a settlement straight to another picture with a settlement. And so people are unlikely to notice that the parchment looks the same. That at least is my hope. So get rid of that, and discard the changes. And now we'll look at the coding side of things. How did I make it display like that? Well, let's get into here. Go over to Explore. And this is a very complicated array. This is the array that displays the arrows that you click to choose where to go and whether to go quickly or slowly. And the relevant bit we want is the one in the middle, where all of this bit. Now, MS is the array that is set to 0 if there's nothing there, 1 if there's a settlement, and 2 if there is a special feature. So this is if there's a settlement there. And W is a string of 4 digits, which are either 1 or 0. Each one indicates a tunnel in a particular direction. So 1010 means there's a tunnel to the north, there's not one to the east, there is one to the south, and there's not one to the west. So that would be like a straight tunnel going north-south, for example. So here is the thing we want. Here is the sort of new, the new bit of coding. We're going to set Z to equal to something, and it's going to be something like this. So I'll type it out. I'll zoom in and I'll type it out so it's a bit easier to see what's going on. Okay, so it'll be TD style equals. Now, this slash just means the next character is part of the string, because if we didn't have that, it would read this and go, okay, quote marks, TD style equals, oh, more quote marks, that's the end of the string. So that's the entire string there. Well, that's not what we want. We want that symbol, TD style equals, and then we want the quote mark to be sort of part of the string. And the way we do that is we do this upper left to bottom right slash. So that tells the computer, don't put this slash in the string, but this next character is part of the string, even though it would normally indicate the end of the string. So we have something like TD style equals background image URL map slash, and W will be, as I said, something like 1110, something like that. I'm going to read all this out once I type it out, because there's quite a bit to it. Background, repeat. Okay, so here is what we'll get. A lesser than symbol, which indicates that this is the beginning of an HTML command. In other words, it's part of the language that's used for sort of basic websites. TD, which indicates that it is a cell of a table. TD space style equals quote. And this is all of the stuff within quotes is instructions to the computer about the style of the image. So we go background, background dash image, colon. So background dash image colon space URL bracket inverted comma map slash 1110.png inverted comma end bracket semicolon. So map is just the folder where I've placed these particular pictures. So map slash 1110 or whatever it may be, .png, inverted commas, end bracket, semicolon, In this particular case, the semicolons separate each of the commands. So we're saying background image, use this map/1110. Next one, we have background dash repeat. So BACKGROUND dash REPEAT colon no dash repeat. So NO dash REPEAT. Now what that means is, by default, if you have a background image, the computer will just sort of repeat the picture. It'll tile the picture. You may remember really old, like GeoCities websites and stuff. They had a background image, and it was like a little image, and it was sort of repeated indefinitely. Well, this is telling it, don't do that. Don't repeat it. Only show the picture once. Semicolon space width colon space 300 px. Px means pixels. Semicolon space HEIGHT colon space 300 px, and then we have quotation marks greater than to sort of close off the command. So what that's telling the computer is, I want you to use, in this particular cell only, I want you to use map/1110.png or whatever it may be as the background image. I don't want you to repeat that image, which is the default behavior. I want the width of this cell to be 300 pixels, and I want the height to be 300 pixels. Now, if we put a picture, if we had TD and then we had an image down here, which would be, we would do with the img command, it would adjust the size of the cell based on that image. So there, in that case, we wouldn't need to say width 300 and height 300 if the picture was 300 by 300, because it adjusts it to the pictures that are displayed in that cell. But unfortunately, it doesn't do that with background images. It'll just cut them off quite happily. So we have to say width 300 pixels and height 300 pixels. Now, you might wonder, well, hang on, you've made the width 300 pixels and you've made the height 300 pixels, and the picture, these images are 300 by 300 pixels. So why do you need to put no repeat? Shouldn't the 300 by 300 picture display once within a 300 by 300 frame and there be no repetition? And you're absolutely right, but when I did it on my computer, it had a little bit of repetition. You could sort of see the beginnings of it displayed the picture, and then just to the left it was just a little thin strip of the picture starting again, and then just below it was a little thin strip of the picture starting again. So I don't know why it was doing that. It obviously wasn't making it exactly 300 pixels. But when I put this command of background repeat, no repeat, it didn't do that. So you do need to do it. So it'll print something like, it'll turn Z to be something like the text that I've just shown you, the difference being that this map/1110 will, that sequence of ones and zeros will be different. So that is stored in Z. Then, if ms cx cy equals 1, cx and cy are your current x and y locations, and ms is the array that tells you the basic category of what's at that particular location. So, in other words, and 1 is the code for a settlement. So in other words, this command means if there's a settlement at the current location, then we add this to Z. We add img, square bracket img, square bracket map/settlement.png, settlement being SETTLEMENT, .png, close square brackets, close square brackets. And that just means display the image that is in the map folder and is called settlement.png, which is the one that I sort of started to make, i.e. it's mostly transparent and it has a little square in the middle with the symbol for a settlement. And then, whether or not there's a settlement there, Z equals Z plus the command to close a TD, in other words, to say this is the end of that particular cell. And finally, we print Z, we print all this stuff. Now, why do we make it print all that stuff? Why don't we just type it out like that? Well, the reason is because this thing here is going to be different. If it was always the same picture, if it was always 1110 or something, we could do it. We could just type that. But unfortunately, we can't have this sort of command with a variable. If we put something like that, it'll just look for, it'll go into the map folder and look for something called $w.png rather than looking in the $w variable and getting 1110. So that's why we do that. We set Z up to be that plus the image plus the command to /td, which ends the cell. And so if we have a settlement, we have this as the background image, and then we have the settlement indication as the actual image in the cell, and it'll print one on top of the other. And that's how you do that. Now, I want to have other symbols and have those be displayed when relevant as well. So I will need to put more code in here, like if ms cxcy equals 1, instead of saying /if, I might have else if ms cxcy equals 2, then we look at what's there and so on. But that is for another time. For now, we've just got an indication that there's a settlement. So I hope that was of use or interest to at least some of you, and I hope you will join me next time.